yield the balance of my time.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the follow-up question. I heard you say, obviously, 1968, and we're in 2018. Tell me what you think in terms of the conditions of 68, which obviously there was the riot, to where we are in 2018 in your mind. I mean, I know there's been some progress, but in terms of things moving back, can you speak a little bit more to?
Sure. Many communities, housing was segregated.
Right.
We've passed fair housing laws. Affordable housing now is out of reach for many African Americans, and this administration now is gutting all of our fair housing programs, our public housing programs, our Section 8 programs. The banks, of course, did target African American communities for these subprime scam loans, which unfortunately equity that had been built in the homes that we purchased after 1968, that's gone. And so the wealth gap is huge. It's greater than what it was probably in 1968. When you look at the number of African Americans who were unemployed in 1968, I believe it was a little over 5%. Now we're looking at 7%. When you look at the incarceration rates, the war on drugs, what the marijuana laws in this country, especially in the 80s, the impact of that, we have so many of our young African American men incarcerated for misdemeanor and felony charges for marijuana distribution, sale, and use. And so, you know, we're looking at mass incarceration that has taken place since 1968 of African American young men and women. And so, yes, we made a lot of progress. I stand here as the 100th black member of Congress. You are here. We have a Congressional Black Caucus that has increased in its size. We have many, many allies in our fight. But I think what we haven't addressed is the issue of racism and institutional racism and barriers, because it's so subconscious for so many people until some decisions are made, many decisions are made which negatively impact, you know, the African American community. And so from 1968 to now, we have made some progress. I mean, we have some great professionals, people doing wonderful things in our community, great leaders. We have great scientists and lawyers and doctors and teachers and firefighters and workers. We have so many people who have been able to lift themselves into the middle class, but we have left so many behind. And that's the point. I think that while of this new report, while some of us have progressed, we didn't do what was necessary to bring everyone along with us, to lift everyone out of poverty in the black community and provide for a level playing field, for equality, for parity, and for really a pathway into the American dream. And that's really very sad and very shameful, but I have a lot of hope that our young people and that we here in the House and that the country really begins to understand that we have to address the root causes of what has happened in this country as it relates to the Middle Passage and to slavery, and understand that what we see today in many respects that cause these economic and racial disparities go right back to the unfortunate, devastating, horrific Middle Passage.
Can you, Mr. Speaker, maybe real quick, the panel you're leading on poverty, can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure.
How you know?
Sure. Several years ago, we established the WIP's Task Force on Poverty, Inequality, and Opportunity. And for so many years, I wanted to see our caucus talk about more issues relating to low-income and working people and people of color. And, you know, I really appreciate our whip, Steny Hoyer, and our leader, Nancy Pelosi, for really rallying around this concept of let's look at all of the issues around poverty, inequality, and opportunity. And so we put together this task force to begin to look at the policies that not only we need to support that are lifting people out of poverty, but what we need to do to fight against some of the policies and funding priorities that would lead more people into the ranks of the poor. And so this task force now has over 100 people. We have meetings with experts, with organizations that are doing wonderful work throughout the country in communities of color and low-income communities and the Black community, really demonstrating that there are some grassroots efforts and community efforts that while here in Congress we haven't been able to change many policies, that at the grassroots level and at the community level there are some wonderful people doing some great things to help lift people out of poverty into the middle class. And so we try to highlight and showcase those organizations and individuals so that we can replicate them around the country, so that until we can get the policies right, we can support those efforts that are taking place that are really doing